Intanti ń gbàdúrà fún tanti ṣẹ́tọ̀ tipẹ́tipẹ́ ní ti gbàgbà tó wà K state tó Ògbómọ̀ṣọ́ jẹ́ capital. Ṣùgbọ́n ẹ bá fi àwọn eléyìí o.
Sean of Ogbomosho land. Sean's Palace, Ogbomosho. Letter of resignation from the position of Mayegun of Ogbomosho land. I, Senator Hamzat Ayoade Adesh, the Asiwaju and Baba Saladin of Ogbomosho land, hereby tender my letter of resignation from the position of Mayegun of Ogbomosho with effect from the date of this letter. That is today. This resignation has been contemplated within the first 6 months of your ascending the throne as Oba. However, I've had to tarry a while out of one, utmost consideration and respect and abiding allegiance to the institution of Seanship. And two, a deeply felt sense of appreciation, honor, and deference to your predecessor in office, Oba Jimoh Oladunni Oyewumi Ajagungbade III, the Sean of Ogbomosho land, now very present. In his Solomonic wisdom, honored me by installing me as the honorary Mayegun of Ogbomosho some 5 years ago. In recognition of my remarkable strides in the collective effort at developing our beloved Ogbomosho land. However, since you have now chosen to cast the first stone, I now consider myself freed and no longer encumbered henceforth. This newfound freedom will now guide my relationship with you, will be as the situation may warrant and or dictate. Despite our warrior antecedents as a people in Yoruba history, modern day Ogbomosho evolved over time into a most peaceful, accommodating, considerate, and conducive abode for all, without reference to ethnic, religious, cultural, or political affiliation. That was until you arrived on the scene as Kabiyesi. Within weeks of your becoming Sean, your style, attitude, approach, and actions generally suggest insensitivity to the values, cultural ethos, and a fundamental lack of understanding of the Ogbomosho people whom you have come to rule over. Based on the foregoing, it wasn't at all difficult for me to decipher that you are an Oba who enjoys listening only, in capital letters, only to his own voice and yields, again, only to his own counsel. Therefore, such a leader needs no chief or other palace courtiers to moderate his actions, however much such is necessary or desirable. Please recall that over the past couple of years of your ownership, the serenity in Ogbomosho land that everybody had hitherto taken for granted has now been shattered into smithereens, largely on account of your myriad of what I regard as avoidable mistakes. These have included: 1. Indefensible supremacy battles with major brother Obas in Ogbomosho land, e.g., Kabiyesi Olugban, Kabiyesi Onpetu, Kabiyesi Aresa, and so on and so forth, all of whom coincidentally happen to also be Christians. 2. Unwarranted attacks on various community-based organizations who have traditionally been at the vanguard of meaningful non-governmental development in Ogbomosho. For example, the 114-year-old Ogbomosho Parapor Worldwide, the ESCO of which you unilaterally sought to disband illegally until the court stopped you in your tracks. Ogbomosho Sons and Daughters in the Americas, Ogbomosho Butchers Association, Ogbomosho Market Men and Women Association, Egbe Onishowo, and so on and so forth. Number 3, similarly, you began to wage war on various elites in the town who have proven themselves to be pillars of peace and progressive development in the town, including Dr. Sakabalogun, Alhaji Mansur Ejide, Alhaji Rashid Ayinla, AIG Shehu retired Shehu Babalola, and my humble self, among others. Number 4, to worsen the situation, you embarked on a persistent, but thanks be to God Almighty, futile effort to cause religious crisis in the land. You repeatedly sought to remove the Grand Chief Imam of Ogbomosho land, as well as seal off the Ogbomosho Central Mosque, both of which are very important symbols of Islamic faith in our town, using the spurious and false guise that Muslims don't want you to succeed as an Arab. Number 5, despite the fact that the matter is presently before the courts for adjudication, you have persisted in your efforts to stabilize the Muslim community of Ogbomosho. You abuse and publicly humiliate people, no matter how highly or lowly placed. You organize harassment sessions to browbeat your subjects. You even threaten your subjects with physical violence, up to and including threats to decapitate anyone who is recalcitrant. All of the above and the disaffection they engender are absolutely not in tandem with the desires and aspirations of our people. In these circumstances, therefore, I cannot in good conscience continue to operate as a chief under your leadership. This, of course, without prejudice to my dedication to the cause of peace, harmony, and comprehensive development of our town, Ogbomosho, and our people with a view to taking Ogbomosho to the next level by the special grace of God Almighty. Yours faithfully, Senator Hamzat Ayuade Adeseun, signed. That's the letter of resignation. Next, I have a more detailed write-up stating in clear terms the various iniquities of Akabisi that are detrimental to the progress, peaceful coexistence, and development of our beloved homeland, Ogbomosho. They come under several subheads. I mentioned earlier the supremacy quarrel with senior Obas in Ogbomosho land. There's been a claim that Muslims in Ogbomosho do not want Kabiyesi to succeed. But we have several high-ranking, very senior Obas in Ogbomosho land who are also Christians. For instance, Kabiyesi Olugbo of Orilegban is a Christian. His wife is a prophetess. Kabiyesi Onketo of Ijeru is not only a Christian, and his wife is not only a Christian, but Kabiyesi is also a preacher and a minister of God who goes periodically on expeditions preaching the word of God. Several Kabiyesi in our area. Kabiyesi Aresa, Kabiyesi Alajawa, Kabiyesi Alapafokin are known practicing Christians. So there's no reason for anybody, and they have been on their father's loans collectively for decades without any hint or for any hindrance of any kind, without any recourse to religious quarrels. Ogbomosho land is a place where it's a refuge for all faiths, Christians, Muslims, and what have you. I even keep telling people that I am a very good example of what a typical Yoruba man, it's not just Ogbomosho, it's in throughout Yoruba land, what a typical Yoruba man should be. I'm a Muslim, a practicing Muslim, the son of Muslim parents. I have performed the Hajj and Umrah altogether about 8 times now. We just ended the Ramadan season that all Muslims are compelled to observe. But I'm very happily married to just one wife, who also happens to be a devoted Christian, the daughter of a foremost Methodist minister, who herself is a practicing Methodist. She is the Otun Yalode, Otun Yajo, rather, of our church, the Methodist church. She's a knight of St. John's, the Methodist church. The knight of St. John's, the Methodist church, is the highest honor that church confers on those who are not ministers of God in their church. We've never had, in fact, I tell people, if I had married a Muslim, maybe I would never have been as successful as I've been till date. So in Ogbomosho land, nobody bothers about your religion. In my own family, I have a cousin, first cousin, who is not only a pastor in the church, he owns the church. We all cohabitate together, we live together in peace. I keep telling people, and people will think I'm funny when I say this sometimes. We all follow religions that our hearts dictate that we should follow. Who do we know of that has gone to heaven and been back? They are now informed us that when he or she got to heaven, he found out that only Christians will go to paradise. Or who is it that has gone to heaven and came back to tell us that only Muslims will go to Al-Jannah? None. Whatever your handiwork is, I believe, is how God Almighty will judge you. It is not so much the placard that you place on your forehead. But Kabiyesi cannot see those things. Kabiyesi believes that anyone who associates with the Grand Chief Imam of Ogbomosho land, Dr. Yunus Toliat, Olushina Elara must be an enemy of Kabesi. Kabesi attempted to remove Dr. Toliat Olushina Elara on the spurious excuse that some people from the Elara family wrote a petition that Toliat is not a member of their family, which we found out from inquiries that is nothing but a bunch of lies. When the imam was to be, picked and installed, all members of their family were asked 3 times of the 3 candidates, which of them is not a member of your family? They all said, no, all 3 are members of our family. They went through screening, examination in their family compound. Toliat came first. But some people complained. So they said, okay, fine, we'll cancel that. We'll go to Central Mosque. We'll go to the Ogbomosho Muslim community, the collective. They were examined there. They were asked the same question 3 times. They said all of the aspirants were their children. Their father asked, if we pick one of the 3, would there be ruckus or problems? Or they said no. Anyone that you deem fit, pick, would support. And they did. So they examined them. Toliat again came first by very wide margin, for that matter. While Toliat scored 92, the man who came next scored only 52. The man who came after that scored about 27 or so. So the difference was clear. When the Muslim community picked him, they now took him before Kabesi, a revered father, Obajima Bedagwade III, who then blessed the selection. To now use that as an excuse that people complained. I said, Kabesi, you can't base any judgment on that. Number one, the very first thing is that they had the opportunity to deny his membership of their family when they were asked during the selection process. But they affirmed his membership of the Elera family. Now at this stage, it's not up to anybody anymore to say, step aside. The thing to do now is have them go to court. If the courts remove him, no qualms. It's not up to Joba. It's not even up to the Ogbomosho Muslim community on the ground of that he's not a member of the family. If he had committed some other offenses in the mosque, the Muslim woman would decide, okay, because of these things you have done, we are asking you to do. But that's not the case. If anything, the man had been impressive in terms of his performance as chief imam of Ogbomosho land. So why would you dabble into it? We went to Kabesi. Please stay off it. You are like because you came to Ogbomosho newly, you don't have friends, you don't have enemies there. You're like a new baby. Don't let anybody hang their own wala on your neck. Let them go to court if they so desire. Kabesi initially acquiesced, but eventually he overruled us and said Toliat Elara should vacate the chief imamship while investigation was going on. This is an irony. At about that time, the court had ruled because of some petition from members of Oloye family, some, that even Kabesi wasn't entitled to the throne that he was pursuing, that he had just been installed in. The court took notice of it, but the court said, okay, on appeal, at the request of Kabesi, the court said, okay, continue to stay in office pending resolution at the appeal stage. And Kabesi was allowed to continue to play his role as Kabesi pending the ultimate resolution in the court. That's what I said before the court. When I say Kabesi, if the court would allow you to continue to be Kabesi, why you appeal? Why don't you allow this man also to continue with chief imam until his matter is resolved? If his matter is resolved at the end of the day, we will go. If the court says he should go, let them go to court and let them remove from the court. That's what due process means. Kabis rejected that. We said what's good for the goose is also good for the gander. But Kabis would not have any of that. He insisted that Toliat should vacate the position of Chidem. Not only that, using some of his agents, they even sought to seal off the central mosque, which almost resulted in very terrible crisis in the town because the Muslim youths got wind of it, overpowered the hoodlums, and handed them over to law enforcement agencies. This almost started. That was the very, very first issue that began the process of division of various segments of the town into subsets. Kabis now got some of those people into his palace and created a palace Muslim community. A palace that does not have a mosque. He installed a chief imam in that palace. Of course, the larger Muslim majority, 85% of the Muslims in the Ogbomosho Muslim community continued to operate from the central mosque. And if anybody bothers to go to mass service at that mosque any day, any Friday, you'll be amazed at the ever increasing turnout of faithfuls under Toliat Aylara. Another issue. Kabis now focused on targeting individual Muslim leaders as those ones who have been supporting Dr. Aylara to remain as chief imam. Among those who have been targeted are Dr. Saka Adebite Balogun. Before Kabis's arrival at Sean, Dr. Balogun had been overdue for installation as Balogun of Ogbomosho land, a traditional title. I'm not talking about an honorary title. And the governor of the state, in the process of sealing Oba Gandhi's position as Oba, asked him to please ensure that Dr. Saka Balogun was installed to his right position as Balogun of Ogbomosho. As a matter of fact, we had on good authority that Kabisi attempted to find alternatives to Dr. Saka Balogun being installed as Balogun because he didn't like Balogun, believing that Balogun happens to be one of those ones who had been supporting Toliat Aylara to be chief imam. He delayed that process until the governor nudged him, and I don't know what else happened. He eventually succumbed and installed Dr. Balogun. But since his installation 3 months ago, Dr. Balogun has not been allowed to enter the palace. Twice he went to the palace and some procured hoodlums harassed him, drove him out, shouting, "Ole, thief, ole, thief." Some people said he would not go back there until there's a definite pronouncement from Kabisi that he had the right to discharge his duties as Balogun of Ogbomosho land. The grounds for doing that against Dr. Balogun is simply that Kabisi believes that Dr. Balogun would not go and worship where he wants him to worship, would not follow the imam that he wants him to follow. And Dr. Balogun said, as a Nigerian, this nation, the nation under the law, it is his constitutional right to follow whoever he wants to follow, to worship wherever he chooses. It's not for any of us to tell him, to dictate to him where to worship, where not to worship. Up to today, Balogun continues to be in Kabisi's book as an enemy. He even threatened him publicly. this is not in private. That if any chief transgresses or refuses to follow his dictates as Oba, would have the leg of such a chief cut off openly, publicly. Dito Alhaji Masuru Ayoade Jide. Jide is without doubt probably the foremost philanthropist that we have in Ogbomosho today. He's kind, he's generous, he's rich, he spends his riches on people and on his land. He, in fact, was at the vanguard of trying to mobilize people to quench the riot that was about to occur when the Muslim youth went crazy, when the central mosque was locked off. But I congratulate and thank Ejide. Kabesi has classified him as an Otadu. There are several other people who have been under that banner too, myself inclusive. In this my write-up, I put up something here. I say, look, Kabesi, I challenge you. If people like Ejide, philanthropist, gives out freely, who helps people, who sends people, who pays people's medical bills and all those, is an Otadu anywhere of the town, of the palace. And me, I'm that you are the addition. You regard me as an enemy of the palace. First of all, I'm resigning from that office. Don't suspend me. I don't want your suspension. I don't want to be part of what you are doing again anymore. Because you will there's no you take out of my credibility as a sort of person. Working with you, the way you want it to be done, will actually undermine my sense of self. Kabesi classified me also as an enemy of the palace. I put a few things there. I list some projects that I've done in Ogbomosho in the last 30 years since I came back from the US. And I want to challenge Kabesi publicly today that himself and his so-called Orelus should also come out and tell us what they have been able to achieve in Ogbomosho in terms of developing this town in the last 30 years. Any and all of them. And these things are there they are verifiable. These are not stories. And I also want to tell you, my constituency does not extend to Ogbomosho North, Ogbomosho South, Orire. My constituency is strictly Surulere, Ogoluwa, and Oyo Central Senatorial District. But all of the things I've listed here, if you go through them, you see how many of them are located in Ogbomosho North, Ogbomosho South, and Orire. That's because I'm an Ogbomosho man. And I see Ogbomosho as a collective property of ours that must be developed, must be allowed to be. Ogbomosho, we are a family. Ogbomosho is one. We would not encourage, we would not allow anybody to come and divide us. If anybody comes out and looks at these things and says they are not there, then they will come and challenge me. And if they do that and find that these things are there, I want Kabesi himself to come and tell us in his 62, 63 years of life what he has been able to do to uplift this community. Additionally, there are big organizations that Ogbomosho have always relied on for development. One of them being Ogbomosho Parapọ̀ worldwide. Ogbomosho Parapọ̀ worldwide, I understand, is about 114 years old. That organization had been at the vanguard of non-governmental development in Ogbomosho for a long, long, long time. For instance, the very first only school in Ogbomosho land, Ogbomosho Grammar School, was actually founded and established by Ogbomosho Parapọ̀. Kabiyesi woke up one day and declared the exco of that August body dissolved. And he proceeded to name a caretaker committee to run the affairs of that organization. Of course, the Russian people in that exco took umbrage, took Kabiyesi to court. And once the court stepped in, our nation is ours is a nation of laws. It's not a nation of might. We are no longer in the old Oloye Empire, where might was right. I think people sometimes nostalgically think we are still in the Basharuga era, where one individual can do as they pleased. Not anymore. However powerful you may be, without your position, you are subject to the laws of the land. We are all subject to the law of the land. Nobody will again be allowed to take us for a ride. Parappa went to court. The court declared Kabiyesi's steps illegal, against Parappa, unconstitutional, null and void, and of no effect. And the court additionally warned Kabiyesi to stay off Parappa affairs. But you know what? Rather than do that, Kabiyesi went and created his own Parappa. Just like he created his own Palace Muslim community, he has gone to float another body that they called, I don't know what that body is, but it is to be a counterweight, counterforce to the Parappa that we have always known. Kabiyesi cannot continue to divide the town when he is supposed to be the father of all. He's supposed to be the one that will bring all of us together. Where we are disagreeing, where there are quarrels, he is supposed to be the peacemaker. Peacemaker, Kabiyesi is the one that actually divided his own kingdom. And that should not be. Because of these things, and I've concluded that Kabiyesi is not the kind of person that any chief can advise. Because he's his own chief advisor, he likes to listen only to himself. Because of that, I don't think I can operate successfully serving under him as a chief. Therefore, I don't want the suspension anymore. I'm relinquishing that position altogether. Let him give it to whoever he wishes. That frees me totally. And that will not stop my commitment towards developing my hometown, Ogbomosho. I'm an Ogbomosho man through and through. I will continue to do. After people look at this, I'm not given to telling to post it, but I want people to look at this and go out and verify those things. And if they've done that, they can come back and say, ask these people, this so-called Ore, what their role had been, what their impact has been in Ogbomosho. Some of them are served in very senior positions in the system, federal, state levels. You know what? They don't have a pin to show for their services. Yet they are the ones Kabiyesi brings around. They are the ones Kabiyesi installs as chiefs. They are the ones Kabiyesi. In any case, I know he does that because he knows these people are paperweights. Those of us who have tangible products to show, of course, he considers us threats. Whereas we are the ones who love this. If he's also a lover of Ogbomosho, we are the ones who should embrace. If you fight our loggers, you fight the butchers, you fight the tradesmen, you fight Yaloja Abaloja came to meet Ogbomosho a week ago. Kabiyesi organized some hoodlums in the palace who went and harassed them, abused them until they left. These are the people on whom the chieftaincy institution is supposed to rest. Those are the grassroots people, especially for those also who are politicians. Those are our people. I hope to God that KBC understands what's at play and he retraces his steps. If he does tomorrow, I'm perfectly willing to work with him because his goal will be in tandem with my own goals too. Developing Ogbomosho, taking Ogbomosho to the next level. But if we are going to resolve these issues, we will do it comprehensively. There can be no one-on-one type of resolution because if we do it one-on-one, other elements will still surface and the problems will persist. The important thing is the KBC needs to change its style. It needs to have a better understanding of the Ogbomosho terrain that it has come to rule over. If it takes time to do that, given what we saw in him, when he first came, I was excited. I was happy. I saw a man who appeared. If you see KBC, you'll be proud to look at him and say, that's my KBC. He has the stature, the mien, the courage. He's educated, well spoken. On top of it, he was coming from America, where I came from too. And I was excited. I said, this is my kind of man, a man of this century. But what you have seen so far leaves very much to be desired. Thank you, gentlemen. If you have questions or whatever, yes, I'm. Oh. Àwọn àgbẹ̀ Yorùbá ń kọ́.